Hey YouTube, SlingBlade98 here. This is going to be my DVD review of Mick Foley's greatest hits and misses. This is a 3-disc collection in chronological order featuring matches from his whole career, every stage of it. And while I do feel like there are some areas that are very underrepresented here, this is overall one of the best wrestling packages you're going to find in one set. And any serious fan of Mick Foley should have this in their collection. It's really great. It shows ring psychology in the extras with some of his great promos, such as the Kane Dewey promo, the anti-ECW promo, the promo where he spits on the belt. Really, a lot of his best stuff was before he got to the World Wrestling Federation, and this shows a lot of that. While there are some things missing, I'll get to that in a minute. Let me just say in earnest, this is one of the best packages you'll find anywhere, and before I even get into the nitty-gritty parts of it, you should really have this one in your collection. You will not be disappointed. Okay, so getting off to my start here in this review, starting with Disc 1, his early WCW and ECW runs before he became Mankind and had his famous, run-ins with The Undertaker and Steve Austin. Before that, he was in WCW and ECW in the early 90s, as a lot of you probably know, and they have some really awesome matches on here, such as this match against Mikey Whipwreck, which was his farewell match against ECW, and also a match where he was a member of Raven's Flock, which is kind of a weird idea in hindsight, but it worked well at the time. And they were teaming together against Terry Funk and Tommy Dreamer. Stevie Richards is really funny at ringside in this match. They stuff him in a shopping cart and shove him into the ring post. This is an excellent brawling match. Another match that's quite similar to that is one where he tags against Max Payne against the rather sloppy and stiff Nasty Boys. This was in WCW several years earlier, a very similar pace match type though. A lot of not difficult, but rather stiff and brutal bumps on the outside, and I think Mick actually gets a concussion like 5 times just on Disc 1, including both of those matches, like back suplexes on the floor. There's a very stiff match against Vader. 2 matches on here that I feel like could have been replaced by better ones are his match against Sabu and his match against Sandman. And the reason I say that is because Mick himself in the DVD commentary says that these were not his best matches against them. And although the DVD collection is titled his greatest hits and misses, I still think that matches like Halloween Havoc 1991, the Chamber of Doom or the Cage of Doom or whatever it's supposed to be called, and additionally his no-rope barbed wire match against Terry Funk would have made much more solid additions to this disc and would represent the early hardcore Foley before WWE turned him into a comic relief character. You know what I mean? So I feel like this is a really good disc, and it's got a lot of classic stuff, especially the promos. Good lord. Kane Dewey, anti-ECW. It's also got an excellent match against Sting from WCW I forgot to mention because for some stupid reason it's in the extras. I'm looking this over, I'm not having the script because you guys don't seem to like that. But great use of ring psychology. I feel like they underrepresent this phase of his career to make it look like he really arrived in the World Wrestling Federation, when in reality he was really best before he got there, because all of that hardcore stuff probably wore him out by the time he was in his late 20s as Mankind. Okay, so getting on to Disc 2, there's a lot of really excellent matches on Disc 2. They did represent his World Wrestling Federation stint very well here, which in comparison to the sloppy selection of matches on Disc 1 really corroborates my thought that they were trying to make it look like WWF always had a superior product to ECW or WCW. But considering both those promotions are dead, it's rather petty that they would leave off classic matches to self-indulge their image, in my opinion. Because in the Texas Death Match against the Sandman, for instance, Sandman actually gets knocked out with a frying pan shot and actually almost kills Mick Foley like halfway through the match, and the whole thing is, he describes it as a train wreck. So that's really why I'm saying this, and I hope you don't think I'm being nitpicky here. It really is just kind of disappointing to see matches like the no-rope barbed wire match left off of here. And additionally, some of the stuff he did in Japan I won't even get into because there's a lot of that. Okay, Introducing Mankind is the title of Disc 2. It starts with his match against Shawn Michaels at Mind Games in 1996. This was when Mankind was a much darker character. It's an excellent match, and it reminds me a lot of when The Undertaker debuted. You have him going up against veritably the face of the company at the time, and it's a very good match. I feel like this is one of his better technical performances, where he's not just getting beaten in the head with a chair 50 times or falling off of something. I'm not insulting his wrestling skills, I'm just saying this is one of his better matches in terms of the wrestling. The next match is Cactus Jack versus Hunter Hearst Helmsley before he became Triple H and DX. This is a Falls Count Anywhere match from Raw, and this is a solid brawl, but I feel like considering how many outside the ring brawls are already on this DVD, this could have been swapped out for his Falls Count Anywhere match against The Rock. Or his I Quit match against The Rock. I feel like would have been a much better selection. He has a match against Terry Funk here, classic. Steve Austin versus Dude Love is actually my favorite match on this whole disc. Needless to say, they would not leave off the Hell in a Cell or his first title win. Those are both on here, and additionally, towards the end of his first run, before he went into a short, brief retirement stint in the early 2000s, they have his last hardcore match in that stint there as Cactus Jack against Triple H, famous for the pedigree on the thumbtacks. And this is really a great brawl, and the spots in here, while they do feel similar to some of the other ones on the DVD, there's only so much you can do. This is still an excellent matchup, and I really like it. It goes for about 40 minutes, and it's from the Royal Rumble 2000, classified as a street fight. Okay, next up, the Hardcore bonus disc. This is actually a re-released edition of this DVD collection, so WWE tacked on 4 of his more recent matches, and while that might sound like they're just thrown on there, these are actually some of the best matches on the whole DVD collection. These are from the 2000s, since he's been making sporadic appearances. And the first one is against Randy Orton. It's a no-holds-barred Falls Count Anywhere match in 2004, right when Orton was making the transition from the mid-card and kind of using Evolution to springboard up to the main event before he won the world title. And this is really good. I mean, one of the things I love about Mick Foley so much is that he helps himself by putting his opponents over. He really makes them look good. That way when he wins, it really looks great. Like, he overcame this technical wrestling god or this hardcore legend or something. Like, he always puts his opponents over in his pre-match promos. But when he loses, it makes it look like, there's no shame in that. So I'd like to see more guys doing that, not just the typical, appeal to the fans' face or boo the fans' heel, you know what I mean? I'd like to see more people take the Cactus Jack route of putting your opponent over so you look good whether you win or lose. It also helped Orton's career a lot, definitely. Next up is the best match on this disc, Mick Foley versus Edge at WrestleMania 22. You guys will remember this from the video package you might have saw if you missed the match, where he gets speared through a flaming table. Spot of the match, a lot of brutal barbed wire stints, and you really realize how real that stuff is in this DVD. I mean, I used to think it was rubber or maybe just like twisted coat hangers, but you really see how cut up they get and how the thumbtacks stick in, and it gives you a new respect for what these guys go through. Okay, next up is right after that, a couple months later, from One Night Stand 2006, one of my favorite pay-per-views in WWE in the last 10 years, is his tag match with Edge against Terry Funk and Tommy Dreamer. This is an excellent match. I really like it, and it kind of feels like filler compared to some of the other ones that are on this disc, because this is a pretty damn good disc. This is probably the most solid of the 3. I really like this one. There's an excellent spot there with a barbed wire board where both him and Funk get entangled in it, and it's just ridiculous. It looks like they're getting dragged under the ocean by a giant squid or something, like a sinking ship with tentacles of barbed wire wrapped around it. And I'm just getting a little bit freaky here with the imagery, but when you see a bloody 60-year-old man in tights wrapped in barbed wire and he can't get out and they have to cut him loose, you'll come up with some pretty freaky imagery too to describe it to people. The next matchup, the last one on the whole DVD, we've made it this far, folks, is Mick Foley versus Ric Flair, the I Quit match. And an interesting side note about the last 4 matches, this one being included, is that they received new special commentary from Mick Foley and Joey Styles, and it's very entertaining. For those of us who are familiar with Mick Foley's brief stint on SmackDown as an announcer, he's got quite a talent at commentating, and I would really like to see him in that role full-time after he finishes his wrestling career completely. Right now, I think he's back in WWE, or he was in TNA for a while. I'm not exactly sure completely where he is, but I would definitely like to see him in an announcing role full-time someday, just based on how good of a job he and Joey Styles do on this disc. Back to the match against Ric Flair. I really enjoyed this one. Mick Foley on the commentary, because this is after match, obviously they're talking about it like in hindsight. Mick Foley expresses some regrets, like he felt this wasn't all it could be. Still though, I mean, seeing 2 legends go at it in a match that takes everything out of you and whatever you have left at that point in your career and life, and just like oozes it out all over the canvas. This is really just a brutal match. Ric Flair, I think, brings his A game in here. Definitely great showing of the ring psychology, I think. Like, Ric Flair just seems fired up, and he wears the crimson mask, and it doesn't even seem to get to him. I mean, in some ways, Ric Flair's performance here reminds me of, like, The Undertaker sitting up from, you know, numerous amounts of abuse, and then just fighting back with this look in his eyes, like, holy shit, that guy's gonna kick my ass no matter what I do with him. I could shoot him, and he still wouldn't go down. So Ric Flair, I think, really shines in this match a little bit more than Foley. Some hardcore spots, such as running into the stairs and doing the backflip over into the guardrail afterwards. You know, it's typical Foley stuff. There's nothing that inventive in this match, which is perhaps why Mick doesn't like it. But by all means, this is still a good disc, and I'm surprised that this is just like a bonus little tag-along, because surprisingly, some of his stuff in the late 2000s, you know, after he was already semi-retired, actually stands up on par with stuff from his full-time career. So I have nothing but good things to say about this man. He's probably the best promo man of all time, and the stuff he was willing to put himself through in order to produce a quality show is second to none. I mean, you can really say nothing besides Foley is God or good, depending on if you're reading his book or not. So check this out. I highly recommend this DVD. And besides for a few matches that are left off, that's just a minor gripe. There's still more than enough here to keep you going for hours and hours. But despite there being some matches missing, I would give this DVD a 9 out of 10. I was really disappointed that I didn't get to see, you know, Mankind versus The Rock in that classic I Quit match where Rock broadcasted Mick Foley saying I quit over the PA system. And I also really, you know, wanted to see some of his Japanese stuff too, and the barbed wire match, if I didn't already say that. But nevertheless, I would give this 9 out of 10. Go pick this up, buy it on eBay. You know, kill somebody to get this, steal it from their house, it doesn't matter. Get your hands on this any way you can, as quickly as you can. If you are a wrestling fan, this has got to be yours, or else you are really fucking missing out. Thank you guys. SlingBlade98 out. I love you guys. Bye. Oh, and by the way, I hope this video wasn't too sloppy. I'm not feeling too well, so cut me a break if I'm a little bit messed up here. Okay, thank you guys. I love you. Bye.